Every word out of her mouth was like the F word, that this. I was with a group of people, like sort of nice people, and we had to leave. She was so filthy dirty, disgusting. Half the place left. I said I'd never hire her again, but she was so dirty. Every word was filthy dirty, and I left. And then I see her sitting about, oh, Whoopi.
The video doesn't begin with a policy debate or a campaign announcement. Instead, it opens at a packed Trump rally, where Donald Trump unexpectedly abandons his prepared teleprompter remarks. Looking directly at the crowd, he pauses for effect before launching into a highly personal attack on Whoopi Goldberg. He recalls a comedy performance that allegedly took place years earlier at one of his properties, describing it as so outrageously vulgar that it stunned everyone in attendance. In Trump's version of events, the routine wasn't simply edgy, it was completely over the line. He says he was seated among respectable guests who became so uncomfortable that they stood up and walked out before the show had even ended. Trump goes even further, claiming that roughly half the audience left with him. He labels Whoopi a filthy, dirty, and disgusting loser, then tells the cheering crowd that he made a promise on the spot never to hire her again. The story serves a clear purpose. It presents Trump as someone defending basic standards of decency while attempting to dismantle Whoopi Goldberg's professional reputation in the process. But as the applause continues, another question begins to surface. Why would a former president suddenly revive a decades-old comedy performance during a campaign rally? The answer starts to emerge the moment the clip reaches live daytime television, setting the stage for a confrontation that completely changes the direction of the story.
This is can you get any lower? I don't think so. And what do you have to say about what's happened around the world? Where is our voice as Americans? Somebody's got to speak.
If you're enjoying this breakdown, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Your support means more than you know. The scene immediately cuts to The View, where the atmosphere shifts dramatically as Trump's rally remarks finish playing. Whoopi Goldberg sits quietly at the panel, looking straight into the camera. She doesn't appear rattled. She doesn't laugh it off. And she refuses to respond with the kind of personal insults that Trump had clearly expected. Instead, she changes the entire conversation. Rather than defending her years in stand-up comedy, Whoopi makes a rhetorical pivot that raises the stakes far beyond an exchange of personal attacks. In a calm but pointed tone, she asks whether public discourse in America can really sink any lower than this. She argues that Trump's remarks aren't simply about an old comedy routine. They reflect a much larger problem. Why, she asks, is someone seeking the nation's highest office spending valuable time revisiting decades-old backstage grievances while the country and the world face far more pressing challenges? By framing Trump's comments as a distraction rather than a legitimate criticism, Whoopi encourages viewers to think about what might actually be driving the attack. She suggests that the anger displayed on the rally stage has little to do with offensive comedy and much more to do with political frustration. The implication is subtle but unmistakable. According to her, the performance isn't rooted in outrage. It reflects the anxiety of someone whose familiar political strategies may no longer be delivering the same results.
When he was talking about me in particular, you hired me 4 times and you didn't know what you were getting? How dumb are you? And stand on that fact. I have always.
Then, just as the audience begins to absorb that shift in perspective, Whoopi introduces one final piece of evidence that directly challenges Trump's version of events. This is the moment when the dispute moves beyond ordinary political sparring and becomes a direct challenge to Trump's credibility. Whoopi Goldberg leans forward and delivers what becomes the defining response of the exchange. She doesn't deny that her stand-up material from years ago was explicit. In fact, she openly embraces her history as a comedian. Then she uses that very history to question the timeline Trump had just presented to thousands of supporters. Addressing him directly, she points to what she describes as the documented record. If Trump truly found her performances so offensive that he walked out in disgust and vowed never to work with her again, she asks, how did he later hire her not once, but 4 separate times for events connected to his casinos and hotels? Then comes the line that lands with the greatest impact. "You hired me 4 times, and you didn't know what you were getting. How dumb are you?" Her argument rests on a straightforward point. A businessman generally doesn't continue signing contracts with an entertainer he genuinely considers unacceptable. By highlighting that apparent contradiction on live television, Whoopi argues that Trump's rally story doesn't match the professional record. She suggests that the outrage presented to the crowd was less a reflection of what happened years ago and more a rewritten version of history shaped by today's political conflict and by her more recent criticism of him. The segment closes by contrasting 2 competing narratives. On one side stands Trump's carefully crafted rally performance. On the other stands a factual timeline that Whoopi says tells a different story. At that point, the exchange becomes about more than an old comedy show. It becomes a debate over consistency, credibility, and whether public statements can withstand comparison with documented events. Whoopi never distances herself from her past performances. Instead, she embraces them and uses that same history to challenge what she describes as a significant contradiction in Trump's account.